Sure, but you're going to be the one supporting those 5 brats. I'm taking the house. 2 of the kids are still small. If Mike would help, it would be fine, but I was pretty sure I'd be the one doing all the parenting. If we're considering another child, Mike needs to help too. The kids stopped approaching Mike because of his consistently abusive behavior. But that wasn't the end of Mike's outrageous behavior. He also stopped contributing his earnings to our family. Mike has always loved traveling and socializing. Before the kids were born, he used to say he wanted to travel as a family, but now I wonder if he even remembers that. Mike only gives me the bare minimum amount of money and spends the rest on his hobbies. Mike thinks more about our family. At this rate, I can't even feed the kids. But we've been managing so far, haven't we? Stop being so selfish. We have enough money. I'm the one who's earning it after all. True, we've managed somehow up till now. But that's because I've been trying so hard. I've been cutting back on our expenses to save money for the kids' education. Now I can only afford to eat 2 meals a day if I'm lucky. Mostly I have to make do with just 1 meal. Also, I've been taking care of the rundown parts of our house on my own. That said, it's nothing fancy. I've only done basic repairs to make it look decent. But Mike probably doesn't know any of this. He comes home drunk almost every night. Before we knew it, our home was no longer the fun and happy place we had envisioned when we first got married. It had turned into a gloomy, conversation-free hell. When did it become like this? What choices did I make wrong? The more I think about it, the more I realize that Mike is the cause. If only he could rethink his views on family and children, things might get a little better. Sigh, looking at the dwindling money and bank balance. All I could do was sigh. Just around this time, I seriously started considering divorce. If I stay with Mike, I can't imagine our children growing up healthy. Even now, the atmosphere at home is like a funeral. What's going to happen when the kids hit puberty and start growing up? I suddenly asked the kids how they would feel about living apart from Mike. Hey, would you be sad if Mom and Dad started living separately? No, as long as I'm with you, Mom. My oldest son answered with a smile. I asked the other kids as well, and they all gave the same answer. While I was happy with their responses, I also felt a bit complicated. If it's posits, one morning, while I was going through all this, I woke up feeling extremely dizzy to the point where I couldn't get out of bed. Somehow I mustered up the strength to get up, and to the point where I couldn't get out of bed. X went to the living room. The kids were preparing breakfast and getting dressed by themselves.
Hey Sarah, what have you been doing as my breakfast? My clothes, hurry up, I'll be late for work.
I pushed myself to the limit, making preparations for Mike.
Without a word of thanks, Mike grumbled as he left for work.
Well, a little sleep would probably do the trick. I explained to the kids that I wasn't feeling well and decided to sleep on the living room couch. Unlike Mike, the kids understood that I wasn't well. A little sleep would make things better, I thought. But then, hey, I opened my eyes at the sound of Mike's voice. Mike seemed to be pretty angry.
Welcome back. What's the deal? It's what having dinner ready when I get home, and dishes are still from this morning, and you haven't even cleaned up properly. What are you thinking? you're a stay-at-home mom. You could at least do your job properly.
Something inside me snapped at these words. And you, always at work, what gives you the right to say that? I appreciate that you're working, but is it necessary to say so much when a family member is not feeling well and is struggling? But doing my best too. You promised to help with childcare and housework when we have kids, so why has it come to this? I was a fool for believing in you. It's not fair to the kids. Mike looked startled. He hadn't expected me to fight back so forcefully. But he quickly recovered and countered. Hi! I don't know. It's your job to support me, isn't it? You should consider me as your top priority. Got it? Be first, even before the kids. Yes, I realized that even the kids who Mike had been so eager to have were now irrelevant to him, and it saddened me. Do you really think so? Of course, I don't care about the kids anymore. I mean, why did we have so many kids? We didn't need 5. My husband speaking such things casually in front of our children. Something's wrong with him as a person, let alone a parent. At the same time, thanks to Mike's remarks, I realized what he thinks about our family and children. He really didn't care about the kids or me. I couldn't stand it anymore and said, let's get a divorce. I've had enough. Ike responded without surprise, but rather with a confident look. And as for the division of property, I'm taking the house. Accepted more easily than I thought, but it seemed he was misunderstanding something. Does he even understand the meaning of the division of property? I'm in such mental distress, I could ask for alimony. Well, if he takes the unusually expensive house, that's fine with me. The next day, luckily, I was feeling better, so I went to see the divorce lawyer. On the way home, looking at the divorce paper, I was relieved to finally be able to separate from Mike. At the same time, it reminded me of the past. We used to talk about wanting to build a happy home when we first got married. On the way back from the lawyer's office, I realized I was crying as I thought about various things. When Mike came home at night, I handed him the business card of my lawyer and said, from now on, all matters concerning the divorce will be dealt through my lawyer. The divorce was dealt with through a lawyer, and so we divorced, but I had no worries at all because I had a strong ally on my side. The one who would be in trouble when I left the house was Mike himself. I wondered when he would realize that. I couldn't help but laugh at the thought of Mike struggling. From the time I started contemplating divorce, I began consulting a certain person. This person wasn't my parents or my in-laws, but my sister, Amy. Amy and I have always been very close, and I have fond memories of us playing together when we were young. Hey sis, I need some advice.
Advice? What kind of advice?
Well, I'm thinking of getting a divorce. That's unusual for you, Sarah. Despite her surprise, I told Amy about my issues with Mike. He wanted children, but he didn't contribute to childcare. He was constantly working and didn't pay attention to our home life. He only gave me the bare minimum in terms of money and basically spent everything else on his hobbies. As I explained my situation, I could tell Amy was getting visibly angry. And as soon as I finished talking, Amy raised her voice. Wait, isn't that just the worst? I know, right? Amy huffed in anger. Why didn't you tell me about this sooner? I'm sorry. I didn't want to cause any trouble. That's so like you, Sarah, always thinking about others before yourself. Even though she seemed exasperated, Amy understood my situation. Anerhad, you're planning to get divorced, aren't you? But Shangs, when are you going to do it? I don't know. Well, if anything happens, feel free to come to me right away. I'll prepare so you can bring all the kids too.
Hey, isn't that just the worst? Why didn't you tell me about this sooner? You're planning to get divorced, aren't you? When are you gonna do it? Well, if anything happens, feel free to come to me right away.
I contacted Amy and arranged to move into her house. The kids are fond of Amy too, which gives me peace of mind. Being how exhausted I was from my life with Mike, Amy actively helped out with household chores and looking after the kids. I felt guilty having her do so much for me, so I asked her to take a break a few times. However, she reassured me each time, so I gratefully accepted her help. To amid all this, I found a certain job. It was a data entry job that could be done from home. This job would allow me to earn money without putting a strain on my body. Certainly, I am relying on Amy's support and my savings, but I feel bad depending on her forever. Amy agreed with my plan, so I was able to concentrate on my work. Compared to before, every day feels blissful. Of course, that's not to say I've completely forgotten about Mike. The emotional scars are still there, lingering. About 2 months had passed, I think. While I was working from home, my smartphone suddenly rang. Looking at the screen, I saw Mike's name displayed. What could he possibly want at this point? Not wanting to talk to Mike, I ignored the call. After a few rings, the call ended. Finally, it stopped. Just as I thought that, the phone started ringing again. Despite repeatedly ignoring his calls, the phone continued to ring incessantly from Mike. Annoyed, I finally picked up the phone, ready to let him have it. What do you want, Mike? You're being persistent. Hey, what did you do with the money? That money? What are you talking about? The reason Mike had called me was that the money in our joint account had disappeared. But there was no way I could know about that. After all, Mike had the debit card, and as the account book was paper-based, there's no way I could have it after our divorce. I don't know what you're talking about. Why are you asking me? You're the only one who could have withdrawn the money. You've always complained about not having money. It must have been you. What? What are you even saying? First of all, you're the one holding the debit card, and if you can check the balance, that means you have the account book, right? You've spent too much. Upon hearing this, Mike raised his voice even more. Overspending money? That can't be true. Even if you were, it shouldn't run out. When we were married, it never ran out, did it? It's inconceivable that it could all suddenly vanish now that you're alone. Oh, you just don't understand. I'll understand how much I've been struggling. Listen, Mike. I tried to explain, but you cut me off. And what's up with this wall and the faucets? You didn't tell me they were all beaten up. This wall and the faucets, you didn't tell me they were all beaten up. You just dumped this crappy house on me? Don't you have any human decency? You're the one lacking human decency. Before I knew it, I had raised my voice. I glanced over at Amy, worrying I had shocked her, but instead of looking surprised, she was laughing. She mouthed, tell him off even more. I don't think you realized, but those walls and faucets, they were always broken. I was the one who somehow fixed them and continued living. And about the money, I was the one cutting corners and struggling. I even dipped into my own savings. But you didn't seem to believe a word I said. Stop lying. I did nothing wrong. It's all your fault. Where do you get this confidence from? I'm questioning why you ever fell for such a man. And you know what? If you had worked harder as a housewife, none of this would have happened. I'm a divorcee, you know. A divorcee. This is ruining my reputation with women. X on the other end of the phone, Mike is still ranting on. What could I possibly say to make you understand? While I was thinking, Amy came up to me. Once again, she mouthed, "Can I borrow your phone?" Amy must have heard everything Mike was saying. I thought she had something to say, so I handed her my phone. Mike, can you hear me? Who is this? I was talking to Sarah. Do you think it's okay to talk like that? Do you know who I am? With that, Mike finally fell silent. After a brief pause, he spoke again, his voice clearly terrified, even over the phone. Could it be? Amy, that's right. You sure gave my sister a hard time, didn't you? Mike has always said he was scared of Amy. His reason was simple. He just found her intimidating. Considering he'd been bad-mouthing her, I could understand why he was scared now. But why is Amy being so unintelligent? I was with Sarah, and she's staying at my place now with the kids. Then I'll come over. Don't be stupid. Mike doesn't know where Amy lives. I can hear him trying to wheedle the address out of her on the other end of the phone, but of course, Amy isn't giving it to him. All I can do is watch the two of them talk. I believe in Amy. She can handle Mike. I've always known Amy was strong. I've heard the whole story from Sarah. You make the kids, but you don't take care of them. You yell at Sarah to do the housework even when she's unwell, and then you call complaining about not having money or how the house is falling apart. You're really the lowest of the low, Mike. Overwhelmed by Amy's pressure, Mike was finally lost for words. But Amy continued, unfazed, voicing her thoughts about getting alimony, about not contributing to the household, about referring to his own precious children as brats. He'd done nothing but the worst things to me when I think about it now. Do you even realize what a scumbag you've been? Try looking at yourself objectively. How would you like it if all this happened to you? No, I wouldn't. Well, that's what you did to Sarah. You accused her of not having a heart, but you're the one without a heart. After saying what she needed to, Amy handed the phone back to me. Mike, Sarah, I really messed up. I'm really sorry. Let's start over. At the sound of his name, Mike responded, his voice choked with tears. This time, I'll do the housework and help with the kids. After getting an earful from Amy, it seems like Mike has done some reflecting. But there was no way I was going to forgive him. You can say what you want, but you haven't done anything for us until now. I don't expect anything from you anymore. We're divorced, remember? Like complete strangers. But no, enough. That's enough. I didn't want anything to do with you. That's why I didn't ask for any money. But now I'll be demanding child support. And of course, for all 5 children. The moment I mentioned child support, Mike clearly started to panic, muttering complaints under his breath.
Good for you.
So you can expect a call from my lawyer soon. Hey, wait a minute. I ignored Mike's words and hung up the phone. Afterwards, he called several times, but I ignored them all. Eventually, Mike seemed to give up and stop calling. I immediately consulted with my lawyer and filed for child support.
And sock it out.
I refused Mike's proposal. Now the child support is being paid in full every month. I wonder if Mike is now living without any savings or money. I want him to reflect on how he's ignored us all these years. That tip calmed me, and the kids are still being taken care of at Amy's house.
I was kinda insist on our stay.
But things are different now. I've calmed down a lot, so I decided to start working part-time at a local supermarket. This should ease the financial burden. From now on, I've decided to cherish the kids who I've unfortunately caused so much distress, and Amy, who has helped us out this time. I'm Amy, a 48-year-old housewife. I've been with my husband, Harold, since college, and we got married when we were in our 3rd year of working. Soon after, I gave birth to our eldest daughter, Samantha, followed by our son, Kevin, 2 years later. There were tough times, dealing with Samantha's friend issues and taking care of Kevin, who was rather weak. But now those days are good memories. Both of my children have grown up and are enjoying their college lives, living independently. Our marital life has surpassed 20 years. Tim Harold, who tends to dominate the household, is diligent at work, but left all housework and childcare to me. Yet, as my friends had similar complaints, I never gave it much thought and accepted that this is just how husbands are. Like the passion might have burned out long ago, but there is still affection as a long-married couple. But hence our physical affection and conversations have decreased, but that's how it is for most mature couples, isn't it? There are no big complaints, but there's no excitement either. I do the housework, work part-time, and take care of Harold. Such days will continue until one of us passes away, I thought. I believe that's what Harold wanted too. But Harold betrayed me. One weekend, Harold brought a young woman home out of the blue. She seemed to be Harold's subordinate, introduced as Nancy. She's around 26, about the same age as our daughter. While holding her shoulder, Harold dropped the bomb. I'm marrying her, so let's get a divorce. He said. It was like a bolt from the blue. Kevin is already 20, so our roles as parents are over. I want to spend the rest of my life with someone I truly love. Hold on a second. I can't digest this situation, I replied, facing my husband. Facing my confused self, Harold's subordinate sneered. I'm going to marry my honey, Harold, so you need to leave. Honey, what? Ignoring my fainting self, the two of them started to passionately explain how much they loved each other and should be together. Love is a wonderful thing, and such. She's my junior at work and has always been there to heal my worn-out body and mind from the stresses of work and family. Harold said without any hesitation, my honey always covers up my mistakes and treats me to delicious food. Look, he even bought me this bag. Have you ever received a present like this? The item that Harold's mistress started flaunting was from a high-end store that even I, who am not keen on brands, knew. Of course, I've never received such a gift. In fact, he hasn't even celebrated my birthday for the past few years. You're clearly after his money. I cynically denied their so-called pure love. Prince charm includes their wealth, right? Up you're being dumped because you don't get that. I get it. I've known it all along. I'm not one to claim that I don't need money. I'm grateful to Harold for working hard every day. Enough Harold sighed, looking annoyed. If I'm spending the same money, I'd rather have a young, cute girl who knows how to boost a man's ego. You're past your expiration date. What? Act your done, woman. Just get a divorce and get out of here. The woman sneered down at me as she clung to my husband. Everything I believed in crumbled at once. I could say neither yes nor no. All I could do was look at them with despair in my eyes. It was a hellish week that followed. My husband would brazenly go over to her place and barely came home anymore. Meanwhile, that woman would barge into our house almost every day, berating me. Still here. Get a divorce already. It's so pathetic how you cling even though you're not loved. You're a disgraceful old woman. Why do I have to take this abuse from my husband's mistress? What did I do to deserve this? Is it a crime to be an older woman? Although I felt humiliated, I had always planned to stay by my husband's side till the end, so it took me a while to accept the reality. I was also paralyzed by the thought of how becoming a single parent might impact our children's future. But it was our children who finally gave me the push I needed. Mom, why didn't you tell us about this sooner? One weekend, my daughter and son, who were both living on their own, unexpectedly came home. Even though I hadn't told them anything, they seemed to know what was happening. Samantha, Kevin, how did you? Your mom is jealous of this younger woman and is hesitating to get a divorce. Kevin, you understand how I feel, right? Kevin spat out our father's selfish justification with a look of disgust on his face. That's awful. How dare he involve our son? Gross. She's 26, right? That's about my age. That's so low. Samantha grimaced, clearly deeply scornful. Then she patted my shoulder with determination. Just get a divorce. But what if becoming a single parent affects your job prospects or chances of getting married? I wouldn't want anyone who'd judge me based on something like that in my life anyway. Samantha stuck out her tongue in jest.
As a mom.
Why don't you start thinking about your future instead of us? Would you really have any problems if you divorced Dad?
Problems? Only have to see as now as possible. I am totally have to take care of myself around the house. It's also my husband could just cover our children's tuition. I could live off my part-time job and the rent income from the apartment I inherited from my father. I would have to look after my husband. I can work more hours on my part-time job. I could even take up hobbies if my husband wasn't around, right? No one would complain. And if I went out for lunch with my friends on weekends, Ulster, there wouldn't be anyone to make snide remarks when I cheered for idols on TV, saying it's embarrassing to fawn over young guys. In the first place, the one who's into younger women is him, not me. Getting divorced means getting free from all these hassles.
That sounds absolutely fantastic. I wouldn't have any problems if I got divorced. The moment I said it out loud, it felt as if the world in front of me brightened. Exactly. Fiction, if anything, the one who's going to have problems by marrying a selfish man like Dad is his mistress. Right. Samantha emphatically agreed with me. Mom, we appreciate how much you care for us. But we'd be happier to see you smiling. Knowing you're well makes us feel like we can do anything. You're only 48. It's like you're at the halfway point of your life. It'd be a waste to dedicate the rest of your life to a jerk like Dad. We'll do our best to become independent. So, Mom, live your life for yourself. Samantha, Kevin, I couldn't hold back my tears anymore. Thank you. I'm truly glad you're my children. That's because you raised us with so much love, Mom. The heart of me, worn out by betrayal from my husband, has started to heal, thanks to you two. To power me, my husband, whom I had believed in, was gently comforted by my children. My life is not wrong. It hasn't been up to now, and it won't be from here on out. I won't hesitate anymore. I will live the rest of my life for myself. But paraphrase, once my feelings for my husband were completely severed, my actions were swift. Divorcing while the relationship is ongoing can be risky, as it may complicate divorce negotiations if the relationship between the two of them ends before the divorce is finalized. I hired a lawyer who is strong in divorce cases and prepared to leave the house. But with all preparations in place, I expressed my intention to divorce to my husband and set up a discussion. We settled everything from college costs for the kids to property division. Honestly, I wanted to leave him penniless, but a smooth divorce was the top priority. Besides, it was clear that the two unfaithful individuals would fall apart. My husband paid me off in one lump sum, as if he was disposing of an expired woman, as if he was paying for the disposal of bulky trash. The woman he was seeing was initially reluctant about her assets diminishing, but for some reason, she revised her opinion and saw my husband as a generous man. I almost burst out laughing at their charade, but I held it in. Just a little more patience. A man with nothing but pride, and a woman with nothing but money in her eyes. You have no idea how much trouble you're going to have, you sir and ma'am. Even though I thought it was unnecessary, I confirmed with the woman. Sir, but are you sure about him? Are you being a sore loser? Hurry up and get divorced, lady. All right. I felt sorry for the young girl being deceived by the old man, but it seems I can happily hand over this joker without any hesitation. The sky was clear without a single cloud. I wonder if those two are looking at the same view. And so I began my new life. After the divorce, I moved to an apartment where I am the owner. Of course, I don't have to pay any rent. It's in my hometown, so there are plenty of my classmates around, and I never run out of people to talk to. The location is also convenient, so my daughter and son come to visit on weekends. I was nothing but grateful to my parents for leaving me such a place. The only thing that worried me was quitting my long-time part-time job, but luckily it was a major chain store. The store manager did some groundwork for me at a store near my new home, and I was able to get hired under the same conditions. It was worth working hard and sincerely for so long. Feeling a bit lonely from making too much food and such was only for the first month. Now I'm enjoying the freedom of my new life. Now I'm enjoying the pleasures of living alone and cooking just for myself. Just about half a year into this lifestyle, I received a call from an unknown number. When I carelessly picked up, the woman let out a shrill scream without even introducing herself. "Hey, lady, all the people at the company and his relatives are saying they won't attend our wedding. It's your sabotage, isn't it? Her offensive way of talking is unforgettable, even if I wanted to." The woman my ex-husband cheated with. Blaming others for what she sowed herself is too much of a bother. Stop with the false accusations. I just told the truth that my husband is going to be with a younger and cuter girl from his workplace, so I'm getting a divorce. You said the same thing, didn't you? Basically, all I did was tell it as it is and bid farewell to the people who were kind to me. But it's strange that everyone is absent. His family and coworkers are all decent people. They wouldn't accept insincere people like you. We just sought true love. Yeah, why don't you explain what that true love is to everyone? Well, I guess the people around my ex-husband are all sensible, so their rejection towards the two adulterers must be strong. But it's proof that the marital relationship I had worked hard to build over 20 years was good, and it felt rewarding. But the woman made a big fuss, but in the end, the wedding was postponed. It wasn't because of the cold reaction from their surroundings, but because she found out she was pregnant. When that child was born, she had the audacity to get in touch, demanding that my kids and I send a gift to celebrate the birth. As for my ex-husband, he told our children something along the lines of, "Be nice to your new sibling." Of course, there's no way we'd accept this situation, but our daughters, who are more than 20 years older than their new half-brother, had mixed feelings about it. Yes, I wasn't happy about it either, but it's not the child's fault for being born. So I took her calls and dealt with her like an adult, but all she did was complain that my honey's relatives won't give me a baby shower gift. Why don't you realize that they are distancing themselves from you? I asked. No way. If you see me, you'll understand that the new wife is amazing, she responded. I guess we have to hold a wedding ceremony after all. Wait, you still want to have a wedding ceremony? She never learns. I promised with him, I want to wear a white bridal dress at the wedding ceremony, go to Hawaii for our honeymoon, and take pictures in a wedding dress against the blue sea. Are you jealous? What an airhead. That sounds like a lovely dream. But do you understand how much money this is all going to cost? It costs about 20 million yen to raise a child to adulthood. Other than disparaging a person I despise, I find it more worthwhile to spend time with my beloved friends. Fetch forward another year. Hey, you're Amy, right? Just as I was about to leave my apartment, a man called out to me. It was my ex-husband. This was the first time I had seen him since our divorce. He seemed to be trying to reach out to our children in various ways, telling them to care for their new baby brother, or suggesting we all try to get along as a family. Although I had not told him where I lived after the divorce, he must have surmised that I inherited my parents' apartment. "Long time no see," he greeted me. Picture a smirk playing on his lips. I racked my brain trying to remember if he always had such a creepy smile. I wondered if I had even seen him smile in the last few years. I thought seeing him again might stir up a whirlpool of emotions, but surprisingly, I was able to handle the situation quite calmly. "What brings you here?" I asked. "But you're so cold. Were we married for 20 years? He was the one who made a mess of that relationship, not me. Ignoring my glaring face, my ex-husband rambled on about the issues in his new marriage. In a nutshell, he complained that his new wife was too demanding, always nagging him to stop wasting money, take care of the kids, wash dishes, do the laundry, and so forth. Save money, she would... I could nag him. "If you're a father, play with your kid. Change the diapers." But to my ex-husband, these requests seemed completely unreasonable, but most people would consider them perfectly reasonable expectations in a marriage. His new wife had finally come to realize the truth. This man, unhealthy, lazy, refusing to do housework or childcare, will be nothing but a burden once he gets older. I bet he's shocked to find that in this day and age, when it's the norm for fathers to help with housework and childcare, the husbands of my friends are actively doing housework. The problem lies with the man in front of me, who still can't comprehend his situation even after 2 years. You know, they say women change after marriage, and it's scary. But you never told me to do housework or do childcare, did you? That's right. The times have changed since then, and I believed it was normal. That's when I realized it. The one who truly loved me was you. Excuse me? I was taken aback by my ex-husband's sudden comment. In whatever misunderstanding that Dope had, he began to talk while scratching his nose and grinning sheepishly. "You must be lonely at your age being single. You've been making yourself more beautiful than when we were married, perhaps waiting for me to come back. I know you're getting old, but you were great for following me without saying anything. I'm ready to let bygones be bygones. You should be honest too. What? You still love me, don't you? What?" I let out a strange scream and nearly fell over. Peek. At my scream, my ex-husband's body jolted and froze. I thought my resentment and anger toward my ex-husband had subsided during my enjoyable days after divorce, but his stupidity had rekindled my anger. "What nonsense are you talking about in broad daylight? What's in it for me to get back with a man who has no redeeming qualities?" Hey, my ex-husband was at a loss for words. If I've become more beautiful, it's probably because I've gotten rid of the stress since parting ways with you. And that is, I'm grateful to your mistress, you know, because after parting with you, I'm having so much fun. I'm really glad I didn't end up spending my life changing your adult diapers. No way. Seeing my strong defiance for the first time, my ex-husband's face turned pale. You know, I didn't speak my mind when I was served divorce papers, and I didn't complain even after the breakup, just going through the procedures calmly. Can you please step aside? I have a date. A date? My ex-husband's voice squeaked like in a cartoon. Against to wit me, a woman like you. You must be being conned. At your head straight. I don't mind. If I'm going to spend the same money, I'd rather do it with a young and handsome guy. You're way past your expiration date. I'm returning your own wheats to you. One more thing, you're a piece of non-recyclable bulky trash. But he or succeed greatness, and even though his mouth was moving like a fish out of water, he couldn't seem to utter another word. I have to go now. He's waiting for me. Let's forget about each other and move on. Goodbye. Amy. He called my name desperately, but I didn't turn around and just walked away briskly. With the way he's going, it won't be long before he's on his second divorce. Someone once said that the greatest revenge is to be happy, and I really believe that. After all, it seems like he was incredibly shocked by the sight of me walking away confidently. Mom, when I arrive at our meeting spot, Nancy, my daughter, comes toward me, waving her hand energetically. She's my date today. Sorry I'm late. Your father came over unexpectedly. Oh, was everything okay? All good. I managed to say what I had been holding back for a while. But now it's all about the concert. I've been looking forward to this day, working extra shifts at my part-time job just for it. She giggles. Of yours. Oh, Mom, shall we go then? Yes. Yes, today is the concert of a male singer I've always adored. It's actually my second time attending. I've even learned to secure tickets myself without relying on Nancy. I've picked up other hobbies, but my greatest joy right now is following this singer. If he's in a musical, I'll make a date with my friends to go see it. When he releases a new song, I play it on repeat in my car. Even my son, Kevin, sends me updates about his music shows over text. It's not just the joy of following my passion, but also the fact that everyone supports my interest that makes me happy. They may chuckle and say, "Isn't she too old for this?" But I don't mind. I'm not inconveniencing anyone after all. This is my life after all. Just living for myself. I had completely forgotten how much fun it could be. Cooking for my family, planning outings to entertain the kids, and making a cozy home for my husband were fulfilling in their own way. Because I found my worth in these things. I was scared that I'd lose all my value and past if I were to get divorced. But that fear didn't materialize. My kids continue to value me, as in my job, and the relationships I've built are still thriving. It turns out there's joy in letting go of the past and wholeheartedly embracing a new life. Stepping into an unknown world requires courage, but once you take the plunge, it's filled with thrilling new encounters. I've decided to thoroughly enjoy my life from now on. They look like the very picture of happiness, don't they? I guess if we had kids, we might have had a family like that too.
Dennis's flashing warm smile.
His grin is soft, as though he's looking at something dearly beloved. At first glance, anyone might think Daniel, with that expression, is a gentle soul. But the reality is quite different. That small boy, surrounded by kind-looking parents, frolicking with joy. But it's a shame for the kid, but I'm about to shatter their happiness, and I'm going to do it in the most terrible way. But all of this, every last bit, is Daniel's fault. If there's any blame, it should fall on Daniel, who betrayed me so cruelly. Their misery is all because of Daniel. My name is Betty Smith, a 43-year-old homemaker. I live with my husband, Daniel. I met Daniel through a friend. At the time, I wasn't particularly interested in romance, but Daniel proactively asked me out on dates. Gradually, I started to have feelings for Daniel, and we started dating, which led to our marriage. We never exterior us with work. Daniel was frequently away from home from the start of our marriage, with his frequent business trips and him being gone for days. We just didn't have much time to spend as a couple. Sure, if we had kids, we could have experienced the happiness that comes with an expanded family. But we were perfectly happy with just the two of us. Especially, even without children, being able to live with the person I love most was more than enough to make me happy. I believe Daniel felt the same, but at the same time, I had my doubts. I didn't want to suspect Daniel, but he was indeed always busy. Another business trip? This is the third one this month, right? And this time you're going to be gone for a week. That day, when Daniel returned from work, he told me he had another business trip scheduled. But from what I could gather, he had to travel far this time, requiring a flight, and it seemed he wouldn't be able to return for about a week. This was already his third trip this month. Sure, work can be busy, but there are limits. What's more, he's been working overtime daily to the point where we, as a married couple, barely have the chance to see each other. Daniel, it's really odd that you're this busy. Isn't your company one of those infamous black companies? Maybe you should consider a job change. We could manage our finances for a month or two. I'm worried your health might give in at this rate. Not only daily overtime, but also frequent business trips. Clearly, Daniel's company is not normal. At this rate, Daniel might break down. As his wife, I feel it's my duty to do something about this. With this feeling, I tried to persuade Daniel. No, I'm okay. Book is tough, sure, but it's also rewarding. I'm sorry for being away so much. It must have been lonely. But working is important for our life together. A tenaped of deep states curse uphands, and Daniel replied with a troubled smile. Indeed, having a job is essential for making a living. But does that mean there has to be a reason to push ourselves this hard? I started to question Daniel's words and the company he works for. Am I wrong? Is Daniel's way of thinking just common? Do I really have to continue my current job to support our household? In the end, no matter how much I try to persuade him, Daniel has no intention of changing jobs, so nothing changes and we continue to live our lives. As usual, our intimacy as a couple is quite minimal. I'm happy if we sleep in the same bed once a week. It's been this way since we got married. I'm sure the reason why we don't have children is because of that. Just in the midst of this, Daniel happened to have a day off, so we traveled a bit and came to a shopping mall in the neighboring town. To the holiday, there were many families with children, and I couldn't help but feel a pang of longing. These mid-families, and every time I saw children happily holding their parents' hands, I couldn't help but sigh, wishing we could be like that too.
Stop sighing. It's our day off.
Why don't we go eat instead? Looking at the time, it was indeed lunchtime. We decided to go to a nearby diner after discussing it. As it was lunchtime on a holiday, there were many people. Sure enough, there were many families inside. A child excitedly looking at the kids' menu. A child smiling, being fed a hamburger by a woman who seemed to be his mother. Every time I saw such happy family scenes, I couldn't help but think about why we don't have children, and all the unpleasant thoughts came to mind. I wondered if Daniel was thinking the same, as he quietly muttered while watching the families. Kids are cute and wonderful. I wonder what kind of child we would have had. I have the tation. Those words hit me hard. I might be taking it too pessimistically, but it felt like a jab at me for not being able to have children. I wanted children too. I wanted to give birth to a child with Daniel and build a happy family. Actually, all of this is because Daniel's job is too demanding. If he had considered changing his job earlier, creating even a little time for us, we might have become a happy family like those people. As with those thoughts, I sighed at my own negative thinking. It's not Daniel's fault. Daniel is just working hard for us to live happily. Despite all that, look at what I'm thinking. Maybe I was so fed up with my own thoughts that the food brought to us didn't taste good. I felt like Daniel was looking at me with a displeased face. In the end, I couldn't even enjoy the rare outing with Daniel that day. Since that time, my relationship with Daniel became strained. There was something I felt towards our child, and unconsciously I started to distance myself from Daniel, but I had a feeling that Daniel was also somewhat avoiding me. I knew this couldn't continue, but I had no idea what to do. Because I didn't understand why things had turned out this way. Even when I tried to think it through on my own, I couldn't find an answer, so I decided to consult a friend who I'd known since my school days about the situation. My friend listened to my story, sincerely empathizing with my words, and reassured me, "Betty, you're doing your best." But even so, I didn't feel any better. Ixthyr and Prost, seeing me like this, my friend looked somewhat puzzled, prefaced their words with, "I wasn't sure if I should tell you this, but..." and then told me something. That revelation left me feeling dizzy. I couldn't believe it. If that was true, then Daniel... distanced myself from Daniel, but I pretended not to notice. Late that night, I quietly left the house. Daniel was sound asleep, so he probably didn't notice me going out. I slipped an envelope into a mailbox at a certain house. That envelope was my trump card. I'm sure the owner of this house will be surprised when they see the trump card I've prepared the next morning. Thus, all of this is the fault of the traitor. I've just decided to punish the one who betrayed me. If there had been no betrayal, none of this would have happened. Happiness wouldn't have been destroyed. Just with each step I take, I feel a tightening in my chest as I realize I've come too far to turn back. I can't pretend none of this happened. I can't go back. The next morning, Daniel and I were having breakfast together. It was Sunday, but Daniel had plans to be out of the house for work as usual. Just then, the doorbell rang. Who could it be? This early in the morning?
So why?
Got to the people on the screen were the couple from the house we had visited the day before.
Sorry for disturbing you so early in the morning. We have something to discuss.
Could we come in? Watching the man, the woman turned pale, exclaiming, "Oh, hold on. Please stop. Let's go home. We can't trouble these people." Apparently, it was the man's decision to come to our house, and the woman seemed to have followed him, trying to stop him somehow. Why are they here? What's going on? Why had they come to our house? That's in Daniel's mind. It seemed like their visit to our house was not a good thing. While nodding in agreement, I opened the front door. "You saw that envelope, didn't you?" I said, inviting the two of them into our house. "Please come in. Let's talk face to face." As I said, "That envelope," the man's eyes widened. "Yes," he replied. "It was their house that I had slipped the envelope until late at night." When I invited the two of them into our house, Daniel turned ashen, as if flustered. Ignoring Daniel, I made the couple sit down and served them tea. Daniel, who could not digest the situation, kept saying why.
Oh, hold on. Please stop.
Yes, replied, it was their house that I had slipped the envelope into late at night.
Their way. It's a side thing.
The cast was now properly gathered here. It was time for the revelation. "You came here because you saw this picture, didn't you?" I said, laying out the contents of the envelope I had taken out of the cupboard onto the table. The inside of the envelope were the same as what I had put into their mailbox the night before. There were a lot of pictures in the envelope, and I knew that they would be surprised when they saw them. There were a lot of pictures. In each picture, Daniel and the woman were walking arm in arm in the city at night, looking very friendly. And yes, they were having an affair. The reason I knew this was because one day, when I was talking to a friend, she told me, "I saw Daniel walking arm in arm with a woman in the city at night." At first, I couldn't believe what she said. That night, while Daniel was in the bath, I checked his smartphone that he had left in the living room. His password was so careless that even I could easily see what was inside. There were text exchanges with a certain woman. It seems that the two of them have known each other since their student days and apparently were close even before I started dating him. They seem to have drifted apart upon starting their careers, but they happened to reunite at a class reunion and apparently started dating from there. In other words, while he was in a relationship and even married to me, he was fooling around with another woman. This is unforgivable. With this thought, I hired a private investigator to track their movements. Then the evidence started piling up. Moreover, she had a child. By calculating backwards from the time the child was born, it was discovered that the likely conception period coincided with a week-long trip the two had taken. Upon all this while, I had believed Daniel's absences were due to his busy work schedule. But that was a lie. It seemed he was simply spending time with her, coming home late and frequently going on business trips. She, like Daniel, probably used the excuse of being busy with work to spend time with him, all to avoid arousing suspicion from her husband. This means the child Daniel once looked upon so affectionately was his and her child. When I explained all this in my own words, the man's face turned beet red and he grabbed the woman by the collar.
Out the Rustin, it's not like that. Everything she's saying is a lie. That child is yours, there's no doubt.
But the presence of the photographs made it clear at least the infidelity was a fact.
I'm divorcing you. Be prepared.
And it's not like that.
I let out a sigh, wondering what she thought was wrong. As I watched their dispute, I casually glanced at Daniel and noticed him breaking out in cold sweat, perhaps feeling apprehensive about the upcoming events. Uxfree, of course, it wasn't just her who was at fault for the affair. Daniel, too, needed to face his consequences. Though it seemed the man was somewhat satisfied with demanding a divorce, his face still held the traces of anger, but he said nothing more and took his seat. It was as if he was passing the baton to me. Of course, Daniel, you will face appropriate consequences too, okay? Your actions are a clear act of betrayal, and you've been fooling me for years. When I first discovered Daniel's betrayal, I struggled to accept the reality and prayed again and again that it was just a dream. But once things started to progress, I didn't feel that way anymore, and all I could think about was sending Daniel straight to hell. My words made Daniel's face turn pale, and he fell to his knees. "Please forgive me," he admitted. "I was involved with her, but it's you that I truly love," I said, smiling slyly. "That's why even when she had a child, I didn't divorce you, and I wanted us to stay together as a couple. I would have been fine just being with you, even if we didn't have a child." Suddenly, Daniel started saying things that were all too convenient. At that, Daniel's words made a woman's face turn beet red as she lunged at him, exclaiming, "What's that supposed to mean?" Exframivik, ignoring her, Daniel continued, "It was all just a fling with her. I was just under a spell. The only one I truly love is you, Betty." Normally, being told by your loved one that you're all they need would be something to rejoice about. But I couldn't believe Daniel's words anymore. After all, there was a time when Daniel undoubtedly looked at that boy with love. Because he clearly felt affection for that child. "You say you don't care about the kid," she replied, "but that's a lie. You've been talking about having children for a while now. You've always wanted a child, haven't you? You wouldn't make a face like that if you didn't want a child. You wouldn't say something like, 'We're a picture-perfect family.'" That for Daniel, having a child might symbolize happiness. But there's no child between us. Because Daniel has been prioritizing his time with his mistress over me for a long time, I really don't care about the kid. I don't care about her either. All I need is you. No matter what I say, Daniel keeps desperately denying it. He really doesn't want to divorce. That's if we divorce, it will leave a mark on his record. And if his parents-in-law find out, they'll definitely be furious. First, they hate dishonesty, so if this comes out, they'll surely give Daniel a good talking to. They might even disown him. "It's impossible. I can't believe you. Who's been betraying me for years, having an affair behind my back? Who's been disregarding my trust, my feelings? And yet you didn't want to have a child with me, but you had a child with your mistress without a second thought. There's no way I could believe you after all that. Let's divorce. I can't continue as a couple with someone I can't trust. I can't continue as a married couple with you anymore." I told him clearly. At my words, Daniel looked desperate. If it had been the old me, it would have taken a lot of courage to even mention the word divorce. Because I loved Daniel that much. Despite knowing that Daniel cruelly betrayed me, that crime shouldn't be forgiven so easily. On top of that, Daniel is trying to neglect even the child who undoubtedly carries his blood. If Daniel hadn't acted so irresponsibly, none of this would have happened. But even abandon his child to protect himself is unthinkable. Daniel has to take the minimum responsibility as an adult. That's why I can't forgive Daniel here. Rather, I need to punish him and make him face his sins and make sure he never disregards people's feelings again.
The woman he cheated with, her face red with anger, was sobbing uncontrollably.
At expression, Daniel, shaking off the woman's arm, threw himself at my feet in desperation. Desperately trying to hold on to me, he clung to my feet. Sighing heavily at the sight, I saw Daniel's shoulders shake. But even seeing him like that, I didn't feel the slightest inclination to forgive Daniel. Afterwards, we decided to divorce. Daniel was very reluctant, and we even had to go through divorce mediation. We had plenty of evidence of the affair, so the divorce was granted on the grounds of Daniel's responsibility. Then I demanded property division from Daniel. Of course, Daniel's parents-in-law heard about the situation, and they were furious. They wouldn't even let him cross their threshold. He's now working day and night to pay for child support. Birth to the woman he cheated with was also served with divorce papers and apparently returned to her parents' house with their child. According to her husband, her parents are furious, and she's going to be working like a horse with no time for leisure while they're around. Thus, we were able to properly punish Daniel for his terrible betrayal. To be frank, there were plenty of things that stressed me out, and I felt quite worn out. Nonetheless, I felt a sense of relief having been able to administer divine retribution for the betrayal that persisted for so many years. Since then, I've moved and have been living peacefully in a new place. I still meet up often with the friend who helped me during that time, enough to chat about how tough it was back then. He's having experienced such a harsh betrayal. I've had enough of married life for a while. I guess I'll be living on my own for a bit. It's my life, after all, so I've started to think that's okay. And from now on, I want to live for myself. You've taken the painkillers, haven't you? So you shouldn't be in pain anymore, right? Then go ahead and vacuum. Just wait a little, until the medicine takes effect. I'll get it done properly. The amount is significant. I can't support both of us on my own earnings, so I put a lot of effort into doing housework. During my period, I would finish my chores while the painkillers were effective, rest my body on the sofa for a while, and then resume my housework. I do everything in order, but to Jacob, it seems like all he can see is me lying around on the sofa. No matter how much housework I do, there's never a single word of sympathy from Jacob. Then one day, we bought a new house. We've been living together in an apartment until then, but we bought a larger house so we could have a child someday. Jacob's parents are very sociable people who occasionally invite relatives for parties. Jacob must have thought this was a great opportunity to show off our new house, because he said we should invite the relatives to our house for the next party. Jacob, who has incredible initiative, once he makes a decision, quickly contacted everyone with the date and time of the party and immediately handed me a list of relatives who would be coming on the day. The list contained not only names but also ages and detailed information about their food dislikes. I couldn't believe it when Jacob said to me in a grouchy tone that I should cater to everyone's tastes, and he wouldn't forgive me if I bought ready-made food. The dislikes varied widely. and someone's favorite food was someone else's disliked food, so planning the menu was a struggle. After spending a few sleepless nights planning the menu, my period, which had been a little late, started. I took a painkiller, finished cleaning the room the day before, and decorated the room with flowers. I put out air fresheners and reviewed the flow of the next day's party in my head over and over again. And in the evening, I finished preparing for the next day's menu and went to bed. Jacob was laughing loudly at the TV while enjoying his nightly drink when I was trying to finish the preparation taking painkillers. I remembered Jacob like that as I fell asleep in bed. Then, on the morning of the day, I woke up before Jacob, made breakfast, and while tidying up, I started cooking for the party. I kept moving my hands, staring at the clock over and over again. I arranged the finished dishes on the table and thoroughly checked the entrance, living room, and toilet. The effect of the painkiller was beginning to wear off, and I was gradually unable to bear the increasing pain. I sat down on the sofa. I wanted to lie down on the sofa, but I had managed to do my hair and makeup well, and I didn't know when the relatives would arrive, so I just sat down. I turned my gaze to Jacob and saw him watching TV with a glass of liquor in his hand. Even though we have to greet all the relatives soon, he's already started drinking. I was about to say something, but the words wouldn't come out. Maybe he noticed my gaze because Jacob turned and glared at me. "What's up? Are you trying to tell me not to drink this early?" "Really? I get nervous too, you know. Besides, you're sitting there on the sofa so casually. You must be done preparing, right?" Jacob put down his glass on the table and started walking towards me. His gaze made me feel strangely nervous, and I had a bad feeling about it. It's not just that, but my period started, and I've taken painkillers, but they seem to be wearing off, so I'm taking a little break. I'll get better soon. Ellie, is what Jacob's saying true? I found myself unable to respond to my father-in-law's question. If I told the truth now, with family soon arriving, Jacob might get mad and become sulky. But would be unfair to the relatives who had kindly gathered to see our new home. I was trying to adjust to Jacob's words when my father-in-law addressed me. "Sally, your silence speaks volumes, doesn't it?" "Sorry?" He confused by his words. I asked him to explain. "If Jacob was telling the truth, you could have confirmed it instantly. But you remained silent. Does that mean there's something or everything wrong in his account?" I felt like he had seen through me. I opened my mouth to tell the truth. Everything's prepared. All that's left is to welcome the guests. It's just that I'm not feeling well today. You're just on your period." Jacob abruptly cut in. I felt like crying at his lack of delicacy.